and welcome to, we will continue our board offsite meeting, our third day, and this is our final day. So welcome to our final day of the offsite meeting of the CalPERS board. Today we have a half-day agenda. Following some administrative decisions to start our day, we'll move into an educational presentation about building an inclusive culture at CalPERS and the board's role in helping to create value. This is a subject that is very near and dear to my heart. Throughout my career, I've devoted my time to help advance equal opportunities for people from all backgrounds. My personal story is proof that there are no limits to what an individual can accomplish with the right opportunities and before them, right opportunities before them, and a culture that's respectful of all people. Ms. Frost and her team have invited a special guest to lead us in a discussion about what we can do to make sure that CalPERS members we represent are well served by the policies that this board sets. I could go on and on about this subject because it is something that I'm very passionate about, but I'll hand it over to our CEO to set the stage so that we can get going more quickly. Welcome, Ms. Frost.
Great. Thank you, President Jones, and good morning, everyone. As we close out our virtual offsite, the first one that we've ever done, I do want to take just a little bit of time later in the report to talk about our outreach and engagement efforts that we have underway, both directed toward our members, as well as our employers, as well as all of our other varied stakeholders who are really interested in what we're doing here at CalPERS. But first, I know all of you have been very curious about investment returns for fiscal year 2019 and 2020, so I thought it best to start there. Now, obviously, we're still in the grip of COVID-19, and you certainly see the markets continue to be volatile during this time. But our investments for fiscal year 2019-20 earned a preliminary return of 4.7%. And with this return, our funded status is estimated at 70.8. And then preliminary returns for the asset classes are as follows. Fixed income earned 12.5, real assets earned 4.6, public equity earned 0.6, liquidity earned 1.6, and private equity had a negative 5.1. And just to note, returns for both real assets and private equity do lag by a quarter, and those are the values through March 31st of 2020. And overall performance for the fund as of June 30th, the 5-year return is 6.3, the 10-year return is 8.5, the 20-year return is 5.5, and over the past 30 years, the fund has an average rate of return of 8%. Now, of course, we're all pleased that we're in positive territory in what has certainly been a very challenging investment environment, but we did not achieve our targeted 7% return. So now's the time to focus on our long-term strategy that, of course, we've been talking with the board and our stakeholders about. So moving on now to outreach and stakeholder engagement. NASRA, normally August is the time that all of the state system administrators get together for an annual event. And last week I did submit what's called the roll call of the states. And that is basically a report on all of the activities and initiatives that have been accomplished over the last year. And that event is normally held the first week of August. It's scheduled for August 8th through August 12th. At this time, I did a video submission for the roll call. Typically, that would be an in-person 3 to 5 minute report on anything noteworthy that the system would like to report out to its peers. So as I mentioned to you before, we've had to convert many of our in-person events to online events, and I'll highlight a few of those as well. Our employer webinar is scheduled for July 21st, that's just next week, and that will be the second one in which we have an opportunity to talk not only with our employer stakeholders, but we do invite all stakeholders to join, but the content is really dedicated or directed more at the employer community. We'll spend time explaining the 7% investment strategy, and we'll also clarify the new employer reporting requirements that came as a result of COVID-19. And these last few items have been the source of many employer questions that we've been addressing with them over the past several months. The following week, we'll host our first virtual CB event, and that will be a full week event, July 27th through the 31st. And as I mentioned, that's a full week of programming. Normally, our CBs go over a 2-day time frame, but in a virtual format, we know that we can have as many simultaneous sessions happening at the same time, and so we will schedule that over the entire week. We do plan on resuming the in-person CBs when it is feasible and when people can regroup and get together. But there's no doubt that as we evaluate the success of the virtual events, if we find that that is a successful channel for our members, it will continue into the lineup once we get past COVID-19. And then finally, we'll be launching registration for the employer education events or the forum next month. That event is scheduled for October 14th and October 15th, and it'll be a free 2-day event featuring, we're going to try to keep this as interactive as we possibly can with educational sessions, one-on-one counseling, and also some exhibitor booths. I should mention that the forum will include our traditional and very popular Spotlight on Excellence Award, which is designed to honor a state or public agency, an individual public servant, or a special public program. And the call for nominations for that program will go out soon. Now, a lot of work does go into the production of all these virtual events, and we anticipate that we'll be able to reach a wider audience as a result, since individuals will not have to travel to a destination. So moving on now to today's agenda, we'll wrap up with a board education session, as President Jones indicated, about diversity and inclusion. This will be facilitated by Marlene Timberlake-Diadamo, our new Chief Diversity Officer. And the session will really focus on the board's role in supporting the organization's culture. This is an important step forward on our journey to continue to refine our established culture so that it continually evolves, that it represents the voices and the many talents that we're able to recruit and retain at CalPERS. Marlene has invited a special guest to lead us in that discussion, and I'll let her do further introductions at that time. Also, on the subject of culture, I want to mention just 2 last items. Recognition is an important part of our culture here, and each year we host what we call the Apec Ceremony to honor employees recognized for outstanding work, whether that's directed at the membership or whether that's just directed at being a great team member to others. This year's ceremony will take place on August 6th, and we're looking forward more to a web chat format, and Michelle Tucker and I will be hosting that event this year. And then just, a sad note, but a happy note for the individual who has made a decision to retire. Really another way that we honor our people is to acknowledge their years of service at that time. So Karen Perkins, who works closely with the board president, as well as many of you generally, will be retiring after 15 years of service to CalPERS and more than 20 years with the state overall. Her last day in the office will be July 22nd. Karen has served in multiple capacities while here at CalPERS, starting off working in the Office of Public Affairs as an information officer. She also spent time overseeing internal communications while also serving as an executive advisor to the CEO in 2010. Karen then moved to the health team as a research manager before she transitioned to the board services unit, where she has worked with 3 board presidents in the last 5 years. Of her career highlights, Karen cites overseeing the team that hosted the first ever virtual CalPERS board meeting and developing and implementing strategic communication initiatives like the Dependent Eligibility Verification Project, which saved more than $120 million. Karen, I know your skills and talents, your eye toward meticulous detail will be greatly missed. I know I have certainly appreciated those during my time here. We wish you all the best in your retirement. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you who have joined our offsite meetings to engage on topics and issues that are so important to the members we serve. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to President Jones to get us started with the rest of the agenda today.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Frost. And before we get started, I would also like to take a moment to recognize Karen Perkins. Karen, as Marcy mentioned, will be retiring after 20 years of service of state service, that is, with the in various roles. And I've had the pleasure of working very closely with her in the last year and a half during my 10 years board president. And I can tell you, she has done a lot of juggling to help manage my calendar, communicate with stakeholders, and ensure that I have all the resources that I need to conduct board business. Karen, your support and keen insights have been invaluable to me personally, and I'm sure to many of our board members as well. Your leadership of the board service unit team has been excellent, and we thank you for all of that. You have done, thank you for all that you've done to ensure that this board is prepared each time, and you do such a good job in doing that. So, on behalf of the board, we wish you well in your retirement and promise that we'll do all we can to make sure your checks are in the mail when you retire. So with that, thank you again, Karen. And so now we will move back to our agenda. And the is Mr. Sharad Shah on the phone? How about a hand for Ms. Perkins?